Welcome along to a brand new sporting event on the international calendar. It's the first ever edition of the Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon. Beautiful conditions, 17,000 runners from around the world have descended on the Eternal City, and we are a few minutes away from the start, which will be in waves. This is Jeff Whiteman with live coverage from Rome. The start will take place at the Circo Massimo. These are live pictures from the air as we look down. 4 wave starts right the way through to 8:50 local time, and we will be concentrating our attention on the elite field, where the target is to get a man under 60 minutes and a woman around 66 minutes in this first edition of the race. So looking back at the assembled waves, they've been down there for some time, some of these athletes, on the front row of the grid, but it's pretty mild conditions, 16 degrees. And it's a course that takes in all of the epic sights of Rome. We'll pick up on some of those as they make their journey out and back, although the finish line will be alongside the Colosseum. And it's been a games venue since ancient times, as you can see on the caption, Circo Massimo. Also a trading area as well, a nice big open space in an urban setting for these runners to gather. And there does appear to be a significant contingent. I think I heard the PA announcer saying 66% of the field from outside Italy. So terrific marketing to get the competitors here. There are 1 or 2 undulations on the course. We'll have a look at it now. The high point is at 7 kilometers. That's at Porto Ardeatina, where there's a rise, but the course takes in the Basilica within the first few kilometers. Not a particularly technical course. You can see we've got some nice long boulevards, and not really an out and back. It's almost a circuit, but you can see there are plenty of changes of directions. But alongside the banks of the Tiber, as we go through the halfway point, and then shortly to begin the turn back into the city. And it's already, I think, future-proofed to enable the field to grow from 17,000. So this is the return run, 21.1 kilometers, the full half marathon distance through the Piazza Venezia, and finishing at the Colosseum, one of the wonders of the world. So there it is. Neatly designed course to take in many of the sights, and we're now at 8:18, so the first wave getting underway in around about 12 minutes from now. It will be the elites plus about a third of that field, and then 2 waves across 20 minutes after that to get the whole field underway. Italy well represented in the elite lineup, which we'll catch up with shortly. They've supported this race strongly. It's organised by the organisers of the Rome Ostia Half Marathon in the spring, in conjunction with RCS Sports and Media. These are live pictures down at the start of the final tune-ups taking place. Rome Ostia is in March. It's a point-to-point course going from the centre of the city out to the coast. This, as you've seen, is a circuit. There will be some slight inclines. The topography wasn't on that course map that we've just seen, but there will be a rise but early on in the race, relatively early, within the first third of the distance. Half marathon, a nice manageable distance. This has managed to find a place in a fairly established autumn road racing calendar. We've got Abbott World Marathon Majors taking place in Berlin, in Chicago, in a couple of weeks' time in New York. Half marathons fit nicely into that. Mild weather, and it is mild today, not a breath of wind. Possibility of rain a little bit later on. 30% chance for those that are finishing around the 2-hour point. So the nerves just jangling a little bit. Some of these athletes won't be starting for another 30 minutes from now, but the kit drop has already been used, so they're already in their racing strips with those bibs on the front that are overprinted with the athletes' first names, I noticed. So a nice lively atmosphere. It's almost like the final countdown to an exam. That mixture of nerves and anticipation, excitement. Those balloons are for the pacing groups, which will have target times on them. So anybody looking to run under 2, under 1:30, under 1:45, there'll be plenty of accompaniment to enable that to be achieved. But this is a first look at the elite field, and that honour it's bib number 2 because bib number 1 is allocated to the elite women's field. But Emmanuel Wafula, the winner of the Rome Ostia half marathon, 61:01, his best, looking to improve on that, looking to go under 60 minutes. But you can see athletes from around the world, even in that elite lineup, and a good Italian representation. Wafula is just 19, so very, very early to be arriving at the half marathon distance within his career, but he's won in Rome, and he's won this year in Rome, so looking to make history by being the first ever winner of this Wizz Air Rome half marathon. 9 minutes away from the first wave start now. I think the elites are still being allowed to have a push out and a final stride and a jog in front of the tapes here. These will be the masses with the white back bibs who will get underway directly behind them at 8:30. Second wave getting underway at 8:40. Here's a look at the elite women's field. Evelyn Chier has the honour of bib number 1. And the women will be taken round by male pacemakers in around a 66-minute schedule. That would be a really good benchmark to put down in year 1. Italian interest, as you can see in there. Sofia Yeremchuk, I think, is based in Rome. She carries the hopes of the home team in the elite women's field. You probably saw Fantu Worku of Ethiopia on the first page of those elite women. We were most accustomed to seeing her on the track, but she's now moving. It says a debut. So her first move into longer distance road running, but she's an 8:30 3,000 metre track runner. So if it comes down to closing speed, she'll have plenty. Well, there's plenty of club vests in this front wave. They'll have trained hard, running every day. And everybody in this wave, I think, will be hoping, certainly the men, will be hoping to go under 70 minutes. So there may be a pacing group to support that. There'll be keen competition domestically between the Italian athletes, the club athletes, and the armed services, police, military forces that have teams. Let's look at the weather. The humidity high at 97%. That does give the chance of rain a little bit later on. In about 2 hours' time, could be 50-50 on rain, but no wind, and the temperature rising from a current 16 degrees. So very good conditions for racing and pretty good conditions for spectating for those that will be out on the course supporting runners. I guess the idea for this one is that it's the perfect autumn weekend break. Bring the family, come and see the city, support mum, dad, brother or sister, son or daughter as they run around a half marathon. Hope everybody gets what they targeted as their time or experience. So welcome along as we're back with the drone coverage. This is Jeff Whiteman with you for live coverage of the inaugural Wizz Air Rome half marathon. Live pictures from the start. That's wave 1 that the drone's flying over there. That will be around about 5,000 runners in that first batch to get away at 8:30. The time now is 8:24 local time in Rome. And a bit further back, the second wave, those with the green and yellow back bibs will be getting underway at 8:43, and then the final wave at 8:50. So they're assembled all the way round Circo Massimo. Beautiful pictures, beautiful city, and what better way to see it than on foot in a race. The first of what we hope will be many Wizz Air Rome half marathons. And the organisers must be delighted with the response. 17,000 runners in year one. This is shaping up as a classic, and that is the front row. And we are into the final 5-minute countdown now. Bit of heavy metal on the music, what's not to like? Shoe tech has made everybody quicker. The new wave of shoes over the last 5 or 6 years, incorporating carbon fibre plates and the memory foam, and that's the favourite in the men's race. Emmanuel Wafula, only 19, and a winner here in Rome, Ostia. Looks a bit nervous, doesn't he? Kip Correa. I think it's the men on the left, the elite women on the right. Pacemakers amongst them. There's a few training partners in there as well. Evans Kip Correa, best time of 60 flat. That will serve him well with the target pace being aimed for here. So just a slight separation, as you can see overhead there, the volunteers in the blue jackets, just keeping the masses back from the invited elite and overseas international athletes. That will very soon merge once we get underway, and we are less than 4 minutes away from race start. Gideon Rop, also Gideon Rop Kiprotich, is the training partner of Wafula, so they're looking very serious, isn't he? It is a serious business. Some of the elites being introduced on the front row. And these are the visually impaired athletes who will be given a slight head start. A false start, that's a collector's item in a road race, isn't it? All very organised, they've come back. You can see the guide runners connected by leash to those visually impaired runners. You can see one wheelchair athlete down there, bottom right. So I think they're just making some of those elite athlete introductions down on the start line, probably 4 or 5 of each in the men's and women's. We're now into the last 2 minutes. Fantastic images. I hope you'll enjoy the coverage from this course. We had a look at the course map earlier. It winds its way in and out of the major landmarks. Kimtai there is the pacemaker, Anthony Kimtai, aiming to do roughly 2 minutes 50 per kilometre, and that would bring them home in 59.47. So that would be job done for a sub 60, first ever running in the men's event. Salome Otiso of Kenya, she's a 71.15 runner. So it looks as though they're merged together. That's the men's elite just slightly to the left as we look at it, and the women slightly to the right, but they're pretty much merged on the front row. All of those athletes that we can see have run under 70 minutes for men and under 80 minutes for women. That is the first part of wave 1 that will be getting underway, and we're into the final minute countdown now. So I think they will get those visually impaired athletes underway. So that's them just getting a little bit of clearance to give themselves more space on the course. Just about 30 seconds lead time that they'll get, and then we'll quickly reassemble for the elite starts. Nice long opening straight, give everybody a chance to settle, and here we are, ready to roll with the first ever edition of the Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon. It is go time. The shoes have made a huge difference to the times being recorded, not just for elite athletes, but by the masses as well. They can have up to 40 millimeters stack height, 4 centimeters at the heel, and that with the current technology enables an awful lot of memory foam and carbon plate insertions to go into that heel. It gives more energy return off the ground, and the times are coming down. The World Championship times have just been announced for next year, and they're a minute and a half quicker at the marathon distance than they were for the Olympics this year. That's what's happening to road running at the moment. I think they're just giving those disability athletes a little bit of a head start so that they're not caught within the first couple of minutes. There's Wafula. They'll have a lead vehicle that will have a clock on the back, but everybody, every road runner that ever runs starts their own watch.
Insieme ai runners della gara competitiva, naturalmente sono inclusi anche coloro che hanno scelto la formula.
Last FIFA of Spain there in the black singlet.
Che si comporranno per 7 chilometri o meno, più o meno, ciascuno per arrivare fino.
Of course, the watch is just to check intermediate splits along the way. So the time per kilometre, per mile, whichever way they want to do it. 21.1 kilometres, 13.1 miles. Oh, they're doing a countdown. That might trigger these runners. Yeah, they went slightly early, but we are go with the Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon. The race is underway, the first wave. So somewhere in that group will be the first ever men's and women's champion. Pacemakers will just ease their way to the front on this opening stretch before that left-hand sweep. Target time for the women is 66:30, and in the men's 2:50 per kilometre would bring them home in 59:47. So looking for sub 60, and the clock is running in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen as we draw back and see that fantastic aerial shot. And this is the full first wave. Predominantly white back numbers in this wave, getting underway at 8:30. And then the whole field will be underway within 10 minutes. Look at that. Beautiful sight. And those are the pacing group balloons with the target times written on them. Well, it was an ambitious target to introduce a new event into the autumn road racing calendar, which is pretty congested in Europe especially, but it's been successful. 17,000 runners. They're dressed similarly. Adidas are one of the sponsors of the event, and these are training partners that are already getting clear in the men's event, just 2 minutes into the race. Anthony Kimtai, the pacer, and I think 3 out of those 4 are training partners. It may in fact be all 4. Wafula just tucking in at the back, the 19-year-old. First kilometre will come up very shortly, so 2:50, a lot of chat going on, a lot of nerves to just settle down here. Bit of discussion in Swahili as to whether it's too quick, too slow. Can sometimes be a nervous reaction just to look at your watch too much, especially in the opening stages, but it is important that they bed down into a rhythm that's going to serve them the whole way. I think Kimtai will want to go through to at least 10 kilometres, so at least approaching the halfway point, but very well strung out already. And this is the boulevard they're running through. Lungatevere Aventino, sweeping around to the left. There's some of those visually impaired athletes that were given the slight head start. And there, I think they will have gone through 1 kilometre, just back there. Just some of the tram tracks that they have to be careful of. Rop running the show, just orchestrating this one. Gideon, Rop Kiprotich. The Kenyan names aren't as automatically interchangeable as we might regard European names. It's not necessarily first name, middle name, surname. He's got Rop on his bib, but he's also on the start list as Gideon Kiprotich. He is a training partner of Wafula, got a best of 60.28. And the reason he's quite busy with his instructions is that he paced himself at the Berlin Marathon just last month. So he took that race to 35 kilometres, so he does know a thing or two about pacemaking, the athlete on the left. Very, very consistent as well. He's, I think, run 3 half marathons already this year, and they've all been between 60.30 and 60.50. The organisers will be hoping that this one is, for the winner, just a few seconds quicker than that. Under 60 would be terrific in this first year. And our first look at the women's field. Looks like everybody's in there. Evelyn Chirchir in the black and yellow, closest to us. Bel Alziani of Spain is the pacemaker with the cap. And looking to take them in 66 minute pace, or 66.30 I think is the actual target. So it looks as though there's 6 women who've drawn clear there. Debash Desta is also only 19 years of age. We've had a little look at the under 20 world record. The world best is 66.47. The fastest time by an under 20 this year is 69.45. She should certainly be capable of that. That's Desta on the right hand side of the shot as we look at it. All 4 from Kenya. Definitely 3 and possibly all 4 are training partners as well, so they're very, very used to clicking off the miles. Training camps at altitude in Kenya, on the trails and on the track. They found a good rhythm early on. Second kilometre should be coming up very shortly. In fact, that may be the shout out there from one of the managers or coaches, just telling them whether they're on schedule, but they've got their own watches and they're very, very conscious of it. Wafula has very rapidly made his way from the track to the roads. Still only a teenager on the left-hand side there. He was African under-20 steeplechase champion in the last couple of years. So big jump, big transition, and we go back to the start. 6 minutes in, you can see the selfie sticks, the pacemaking balloons with their target times written on them, so that anybody wanting to reach that target time doesn't have to find the runner, they just look at the balloons and follow that. Not quite so tightly compact, are they, the elite women? Chirchir only just in the shot on the right hand side, has been pretty much at the head of proceedings, right on the pacemaker's shoulder right from the start. Bantu Worku Tai, track specialist. It says debut for her, but I have a time of 70.45 from a half marathon somewhere. And not too many men able to live with this pace for the elite women. It is just Ziani as the pacemaker and the 6 of them. All Ethiopian and Kenyan athletes. We won't have to go too far back for the leading Italian interest. They've got some decent athletes for the home nation in this one, but they could be 20 or 30 seconds behind. Wafula favouring those compression socks just to protect the calf and ankles. Maybe has had issues with cramp or calf strains. So they're clicking along very well. The 3 kilometre checkpoint will be coming up very shortly. Just having a look back at the leading Italian contenders in the men's event. Daniel Donofrio, that's him there in the centre in the police singlet. They're kind of, what would you call that colour, mauve or maroon? Off red. He's a 62:30 half marathon runner, so he's probably operating about 20 or 30 seconds back down the road, but getting a bit of help and hoping that these might be personal best conditions for him as well. "31 years of age now, Donofrio. At the other end of the spectrum, Wafula, the 19-year-old on the left there. Evans Kipkoria, he's the athlete on the far right-hand side of the shot. He's run 60 minutes exactly, and that was in the Belgian Championships earlier this year. I'm not sure, they must have allowed guest competitors in that event. Made an attempt at the full marathon distance earlier, but failed to finish in the Daegu marathon in South Korea. Kipkoria on the right hand side. Looks like he's working quite hard at the moment. They're all beginning to sweat a little bit. It is 97% humidity, although it's 16 approaching 17 degrees on the thermometer. We are beyond 3 kilometres, coming up soon to 4. So they're clicking along very nicely. In splendid isolation, these 4. They're well clear, so they've really got to work together for as far as possible. Kim Tai, the pacemaker, Anthony Kim Tai, the 26-year-old, will aim to take them to at least halfway if he can. Looking at 14:10 for 5 kilometres and 28:20 for the 10 kilometre distance. Big responsibility for him, really, because if they want to get better and better elite fields here, deeper fields in future years, a sub 60 would be a good pointer to athletes to show the speed of the course. 7 kilometres is the high point. That's a nice graphic showing the gap between the elite men and the elite women. Probably over a minute already in time. Camera's just catching Cheer on the left hand side of the shot, but she does have Bilal Ziani of Spain. He's a 66-minute half marathon runner himself, so he's looking to take these through in 66:30. So he'd be working pretty close to his own limits, but quite compact. The eyes looking down at the ground ahead, a few metres ahead. They've established a really good rhythm in this women's race, and at the moment they are on schedule for that 66:20, 66:30 clocking. Taiso, that you can see at the back of the group in the orange singlet, this is actually her first race outside of Kenya. She's run 71:15. That probably isn't any kind of an indicator of her ability, because it will very likely have been run at altitude in Kenya. This is the chasing pack, including Donofrio. So this is the second group in the men's race, operating probably 45 seconds or so behind the leaders and passing the Papal Basilica. It's a wonderful architecture, ancient, modern, and everything in between. We'll be picking up on these beautiful sites that the elite runners won't really be taking on board, but some of those a bit further back can marvel at as they come through. Evans Kipkoria has been tailed off at a relatively early stage, 12.5 minutes into the race. It was his birthday last Wednesday. Only turned 23, but he's the athlete who I said earlier has run 60 flat, so he'll be a bit disappointed. It did look like he was working pretty hard when he was on the left-hand side of that group, and he's getting tailed off very rapidly here. He'll do well to finish because there is a big gap behind him to wait for that chasing group to come through. Looks like he's moving pretty well. It could just be an indication that they're really motoring in front. Turnover's still pretty good, but he's got a long way to go. 45 minutes running on his own now ahead of him. It's his third half marathon, and it's going to be a tough one for him. These three perfectly in sync. They are, I think, the training partners, so maybe Kip Courier was the interloper there. Some nice sweeps on the road up ahead, nothing too critical in terms of sharp turns or right-handers, right-angled turns. And that, I think, is the 5 kilometre arch, and they are nicely ahead of schedule. 14:10 would have been the optimum for that 59:47 time, and they're just a few seconds ahead of that. And they are going for fluids. It's not a bad grab there of an open cup for the pacemaker. It is humid, and the sweating will be a factor, just looking to keep hydration levels up. So Kim Tai has done half of his job, taking them to 5 kilometres. He needs to keep going for another 5 kilometres at that speed. Nice head-on shot here, just looking to see. We've obviously got Kip Courier some way back there, but just looking to see if we get a head-on shot further back of that chasing pack, including Donofrio of Italy. Age range there is 19 to 26. Wide variety of experiences within the sport. A couple of them with numerous road races under their belt. The most successful, and hence hit number 2, is Wafula, because he won Rome Ostia. It was a big breakthrough performance for him back in March on that point-to-point course. That's why he's been invited back. The same organisers, the same city. Is it going to be the same winner? Well, he's looking okay at the moment. Remember, only 2 of these are going the full distance, so Kim Tai will definitely step off. On the far side, you can see the contraflow of the runners on the outbound journey from the later waves, giving them a nice cheer as the lead car, the lead bikes, and these leading 3 make their way out to the far point of the course. Coming up shortly will be the major climb on the course. There is an ascent that will take them up to the highest point at around about 7 kilometres at the Porta Ardiatina. Doesn't look too bad up ahead there in this 6th kilometre. So these really are guinea pigs for future years, just testing out the speed of this race for the elites. Fantastic sight, isn't it? Imagine that, the masses just giving them a cheer. They won't know who they are, but they'll know that they're going well, and one of them is going to be the champion in this inaugural year. The marshals also joining in with a bit of applause. Back with the women, and we're down to almost single file here. Very noticeable that Cheer has not yielded 1 centimetre since the start. It's her pacemaker, her race to win. She has bib number 1 across both fields. So the men start with bib number 2. And the old rivalry very much in evidence there. Ethiopia against Kenya. It is the athlete who's racing outside Kenya for the first time who's struggling at the back of that group. Salome Nyaboke Otiso. Looks like she's having to work hard to try and stay in contention at this stage. The women also through 5 kilometres. Get ahead, get a hat. Pacemaker Ziani going well. Yeah, we're looking at the suffering of a Tissot there. This is hard for her. She'll be nervous because it's her first race outside of Kenya. Lots to contend with. She's desperately trying to get herself back in contention, but you can see the shoulders are rolling a little bit. The bottom set of teeth visible where she's gasping for air. Let's see if she can get back on terms when we next meet the women. But out in front, the men are in their rhythm. Wafula, the number 1 seed, Rop, the number 2 seed, numbers 2 and 4. And this is the last of the starters, the third wave getting underway. So we should have everybody across the start line, hopefully quite close to 20 minutes into the race. It doesn't matter for them, of course, because the chip timing that is embedded in their race bibs will activate when they cross the start line and deactivate at the finish. So they'll get a net time anyway. That's the beauty and the reason why mass races are getting bigger and bigger. And it also means they can all cross the start line running. There's the gap on the right hand side between the elite men and the leading women. In the end, that will represent 6 or 7 minutes, but at this point that probably looks only like 2.5 minutes gap between the leading men and the leading women. Men's champion is going to come from Kenya, the women's champion from either Kenya or Ethiopia. Wafula really bouncing along there. There's not so much chat between these three. They were very concerned to hit their early marks on the pace, and they were chatting. Not so much of that going on, so they're working pretty hard now. This is the ascent on the course at the 7th kilometre. Let's see how they handle this split-wise. The next time we'll get a meaningful split will be at 10 kilometres. 28:20 is what we're hoping for there. But this is why the chat has stopped. This is the only significant rise, the high point on the course coming up. The Ardiatina Gate, Porta Ardiatina, coming up at 7 kilometres. That's been a climb. And the pacemaker looks like he's struggling a bit there. He's just dropped to the back of that group. That hill very much not to his liking. It says Tai on the bib of the second competitor. We know her best as Fantu Worku of Ethiopia. There she is in the blue. 8:30.7, her best on a 3,000 metre track. 14:26, probably her best performance at 5,000 metres on the track. This is a new chapter in her career as we see the Pyramid Cestia, 36 metres high that is. Almost represents the highest point on the course as well, because we are through that ascent for the lead men, and a few spectators now appearing to encourage the runners. So that's not good news for Kim Tai, the pacer. He's almost certainly going to drop out at some point relatively soon. He was hoping to take them to 28 minutes, and he did pretty well, but the hill has really demolished his attempts. So you can see the cadence has gone, the arms have gone a bit ragged. He's in trouble. He's not going to go the full distance, you suspect, although it might be as easy for him to jog around the course to get back to the finish rather than wait for the sweep-up vehicle. But he wasn't quite able to do the extra 7 minutes that they would have hoped for up front. So now they're starting on the downslope at the other side of the high point on the course. Nice opening up of the stride there for these two. They can see up ahead just the lead vehicle with the timing clock on front. That hill had something to say about the outcome of the race, didn't it, really? Because although these two are still going well, they're getting no assistance any further from the pacemaker. So Wafula and Rop, stride for stride, out front. Many kilometres covered together. They're training partners in Kenya, so every day of the year they run. You can see they're perfectly in sync. Look, the footfall, the kickback, the arm action, but there's no chat. Somebody's going to win and somebody isn't out of these two. Meanwhile, back at the start, we've almost got everybody across the start line. Brilliant, everybody crossing the start line running, so they get underway when they go beneath that Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon arch. Well, on the left-hand side of the split screen, Rop and Rafula have certainly opened up their stride on that downslope. Look at the gap they've opened up on the pacemaker Kim Tai. He was with them about 3 minutes ago and now he's 100 metres behind. We're down to 4 in the women's event, Kenya and Ethiopia in there. Nancy Sang on the right hand side in the orange singlets. She's got a best of 31.39 for 10k. She was runner-up in a 10 kilometres in South Africa earlier this year. She's also raced in Thailand, now 30 years of age. 70.30 her best. So the men looking at the clock, at 10 kilometres we'll be not far away from the halfway point and the return run to the finish. There we go. So going nicely. 250 was the target. They're currently averaging 249, and remember that includes that climb that took them through 7 kilometres. So projecting for under 60 minutes. They need to stay together and work together for as long as they can, but they are working hard. Rop at the moment looks the better of the two. Don't have his age. Wafula, a teenager, the apprentice. Just moving across to take the inside sweep on that bend, that right hand turn. And this is the chasing group, so here we are about, could be a minute further back down the course, and the athlete of interest is up ahead there on the right hand side. That is Daniel Donofrio of Italy, represented Italy at the World Half Marathon Championships in Poland in 2020. That's where he set his current best of 62.32, and with a bit of help he could stay on that schedule. Not clear at the moment as he nears the end of that ascent, whether he's on 62-minute pace, but let's hope so. The leading Italian could be third in the race, because I don't think Kim Tai is going to be able to finish, or if he does, Donofrio may well be able to run him down in the second half of the race. So unfortunately we have lost a couple in that leading women's group, going well at 66 pace at the moment. Delomi Nyaboki Otiso has dropped, so her first race outside of Kenya is going to be a tough one. Evelyn Chirchir ran her personal best when she finished 5th at this year's RAC half marathon. Had a couple of times in the 66-minute range. Just to mention the World Athletics rankings, road running has individual merit rankings for each individual distance, but then there's a composite list across all distances. So on schedule for a low 66 at the moment, going well. And at one point, Evelyn Chirchir was ranked number 5 in the world for all road running distances. So she's got a real pedigree over a range of distances. She's run 30.43 on the road, 2:22 for a marathon. Not interested at the moment in doing anything other than following the pacemaker, but you could not get a piece of paper, let alone another runner, between her and the pacer. I think the athlete at the back of that group is brilliant Jepkoria Kipkoech. She has run 66, but she's the one looking to just tuck in a little bit closer within that group. We're within a minute or so now of the 10-kilometre split in this 21-kilometre race. Some good crowds at this point on the course. There's not a direct turn. It just starts to sweep back towards the finish line, which will be at the Colosseum. So they started at Circus Massimo and they'll finish at the Colosseum. Beautiful course. But these aren't sightseers out front. These are elite athletes looking for the win. Training partners but rivals at this point. Up ahead, I think that will be the archway for 10 kilometres, so we're hoping for 28:20, maybe even slightly quicker, to see them still on schedule at almost halfway, for sub 60 minutes in this inaugural Wizz Air Rome half marathon. So no pacemaker for the last 3 kilometres. They've worked this pace off the high point from the course. 28:20 is on schedule, and look at that. Yep, they're being told. Bang on for 59:47 pace. They've done the ascent, but they probably need to work together still for a few more kilometres just to keep that sub 60 possibility in mind. And it is now a huge gap back to Kim Tai, the former pacemaker. Just mild cobbles underfoot. There's confirmation that it's 59:44 of speed. 250 was the target tempo, and they're in a superb rhythm. And that arch up ahead will be the halfway point. And this is the chaser. And I think it's Evans Kipkorir, bib number 23. So Kim Tai, the pacemaker, has dropped out, and he's, well, a minute behind at 10k. So a very lonely run for Evans Kipkorir. He got detached in the at about 1/3 into the race, but he's stuck with it. It's a lonely run for him, but he's in third. It's a Kenyan sweep at the moment, but still not clear which of these training partners is going to take the title. Prize money will be a differential between first and second. The graphic showing that gap between the lead men and the lead women. Women heading for 66 minutes, men heading for 59 minutes. Looks like a slight ascent. It's not perfectly flat, this course, just a little bit of rhythm breaking climbs now and again. We've just got to factor that in as we see the magnificent city. Local time is now just past 9 o'clock. Drone shots. The River Tiber. They'll be running alongside that for significant portions of the race. And that's the island in the middle of the Tiber, the fluvial island, the only urban island. So back with the women, and it's still difficult for Kipkoech, I think it is, at the back of that group. It's 2 for Kenya, 1 for Ethiopia, and the third Kenyan woman just running 2 strides behind, which you wouldn't choose to do. Suggests that she's going through a bit of a bad patch at the back of that group. Cheer, meanwhile, staying close on the heels, literally, of Belal Ziani, the male pacemaker, taking them round. The athlete with 25 on his back. Well, it says Elias Mbaye of Eritrea. I've either got my number wrong or that's wrong. That's the women through the 10-kilometre point, so we'll get a projection of their finishing time, but the belief is that we're looking at something in the low 66 minutes at the moment for this inaugural women's course record. Sang moving very well, the taller figure on the far side. Minimal arm movement, you can see they're very upright, very serene, moving well. Nancy Sang, 70-30 her best, so she's way inside anything she's ever done before. And there's the projection, so it's just drifting out a little bit, 66.53, and that would be explained by the hill that they took in at 10 kilometres. But maybe just for Belal Ziani, just an opportunity to move things along. But as he does so, that will probably be bad news for the back marker in that group. There she is. And it's actually Dibash Desta, the Ethiopian. So I was saying it was Kipkoech, but Dibash Desta is a 30.58 runner. 71 is her best, set in Lisbon. And the reason she's finding it hard is that she's going 5 minutes quicker in overall marathon, half marathon pace than she's ever gone before. That's why she's struggling a little bit. She's raced a lot this year. She didn't finish in the Lisbon half marathon back in March, but she's had decent races over 10 kilometres on the roads, 3 of those this year. These other 2 leading men regathered their composure. I think they had to work on the uphill climbs. They've just got back into a rhythm that's more comfortable to them. And the graphic on the right showing as we come along the banks of the Tiber on the return run to the finish, the gap between the leading men and the leading women. Well, if you're just tuning in, welcome along. This is Jeff Whiteman with coverage of the first ever Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon. 17,000 runners, and way out in front at the head of the field are these 2 Kenyans, training partners. Emmanuel Wafula, the winner of the Rome Ostia Half Marathon, the 19-year-old with bib number 2 as we look at them. And alongside him, his training partner Gideon Rop Kiprotich. This year he's raced in Naples, where he ran 60.28 in February. He raced in Prague, where he ran 60.45. And he raced in Buenos Aires in August, where he finished 5th in 60.54. So you could almost set your watch by him for a 60-something performance, but we're looking for a 59-something performance. Neither of them has ever broken. And back further down the road, this is Evans Kipkorio. He was detached from the leading group, and he's just over a minute behind in 3rd place. Still the same 4 women. 2 for Kenya in front, 2 for Ethiopia in second. Cheer, the favourite. Don't think anybody in this women's field will be interested in making a break early. This could go to the closing stages, or the key point will be when Ziani steps off, if he steps off. He's only a 66-minute half marathon runner himself, so he's operating pretty close to his 100%. Taye with that downward glance, that downward eye position. Oh, and we've got a development in the elite men's race. So it looks as though Wafula has decided he's going to head for home. He's going to try and do the double. He's going to try and win 2 half marathons in Rome in 1 year. And the race is on. He's got fully 20 minutes still to run. But his training partner, Gideon Kiprotich Rop, now 4 or 5 seconds behind. That was quite sudden. Neither of them have ever broken 60. But they must know from training together every day who's in the better form, and you've got to assume from that it's Wafula. He's going for it. There's his biog. Look at that, a former World Junior steeplechaser only 4 years ago, and having won the Rome Ostia Half Marathon, the point-to-point course in this part of the world back in March, he's now looking to put down a marker in history as the first ever Rome Half Marathon winner. Here in the Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon, he's opening up, going for gold. It's a long way for him to run solo, but we're down at the water's edge. It's flat, it's fast. Fantastic stride. If you didn't know that he was running a half marathon, you'd look at that and think it was a 1500 meters or something. Beautifully composed as he goes over this bridge, Ponte Umberto, coming up to 40 minutes into the race. And I think this is a winning run for home because he has really opened up over his training partner in the matter of less than a kilometre. Game on. Back with the women, it's still the same story. It's still the fourth athlete at the back of that group. Desta is the one that just seems to be operating a couple of strides adrift, so she's not getting the full benefit of the pacemaking. It looks as though she's hanging on, but she's still there. Every time we check in with the women, it's still the same position and order. If anything, Chirchir just sitting slightly further back off the pacer. The time at the last checkpoint was just drifting closer to 67 minutes, having been at 66:15 in the early stages.
Here's what I found.
And for these women, up ahead, there is a men's field, but it's not huge. So there'll be a big gap. So anybody deciding to kick on past the pacemaker or ask him to go quicker may find themselves in a bit of a gap. Let's see what this gap is here between Wafula and Rop. Not growing, still around 6 or 7 seconds. As they come back on the cobbles, they've got about 17 minutes to run, a very manageable distance. Just over 5 kilometres. Around 6 kilometres to go. So it's a quick surge from Wafula. And this is Kim Tai. So he's in third place, so he hasn't dropped out. The pictures we've been getting of Evans, Kip Courier are in fourth place. So this is the man that pace made, and he's decided to run the full distance, try and hang on for third place. He got dropped quite suddenly off the crest of the hill at 7 kilometres, but still going. He was hoping to pacemake to 10 kilometres, but he's in third place in the race. And Wafula not getting away. I wonder if that will encourage Rop at all. The head-on camera foreshortened slightly. So still around 6, 7, 8 seconds between them. But you can see Wafula's lower teeth there. He's working hard, his mouth agape, trying to get in the air. Yeah, just has a look back over his shoulder. It's the familiar figure. He decided to put in that sudden surge, but he may be paying a little bit of a price for that now. Temperature now up to around between 17 and 18 degrees. The humidity is the metric that is high, 97% throughout. For some of the later finishers there's a 50-50 chance of rain, so the air is heavy with condensation, and Wafula working hard, just has to key in on that lead vehicle, but you can see the clock will be ticking very slowly for him now. This may be a familiar scenario for him, having won Rome Ostia. Nice long run for home. They've come back over the Tiber, this time on the Ponte Regina Margherita. We're now beyond 41 minutes. So the next checkpoint that we get will be 15 kilometres coming up in a couple of minutes. At that point, just 6 to go. And suddenly we're down to 3, just 3. So 2 have been dropped. It is 2 for Kenya, 1 for Ethiopia. Tai, it says on her bib, but she's better known as Fantu Worku, the former track athlete, in the blue for Ethiopia. And the 2 Kenyans, Evelyn Chirchir. She had a couple of times in the 66-minute range. She'll be looking for the win. She won't be as worried about the time. And Sang looking really composed and regal on the right hand side, the second of the Kenyans, or the other Kenyan. Plenty of racing under her belt, but nothing ever under 70 minutes for her. This is a nice bird's eye view from the, or rather runner's eye view of the race leader. I'd say runaway race leader, but the gap which he opened up to 6 or 7 seconds hasn't increased at all. Just a slight stressful look on his face. Still projecting to under 60 minutes, but only just 59.54, so he has slowed fractionally, even though he's got away. These are tense times on these sweeps around the housing on this residential part of the course. This race, almost certainly, having opened with 17,000 runners, has a future. The inaugural Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon, an autumn race to complement Rome Ostia from the same organising team, the Rome Ostia team, in conjunction with RCS Sports and Media. There's the twists and turns coming ahead. Up, that's one of the sharpest turns on the course for the lead man. You can see that graphic moving round, and the lead women back, just coming up to 14 kilometres the other side of the River Tiber. He's moving well, he's moving freely. It's only from the shoulders up you can see the tension, that nervous look at his watch. There's one of the sharp turns. Yeah, he has a look over his shoulder. All is not completely well here. He's only a teenager, only 19 years of age. That's the 15-kilometre timing arch coming up ahead. He's still got 6 kilometres to run. Quiet part of the course. And operating right on 60-minute pace as he goes down the Via del Corso. And it looks as though we've been able to insert the camera bike in between runners 1 and 2. Suggests that gap is more than 10 seconds, but it won't be much more. He did all of the damage very suddenly, Emmanuel Wafula, and it looked like it hurt him a little bit, and he slowed up very slightly. Nice encouragement here. There's the drink stations, which he's not interested in, but which some of the other athletes will take advantage of a little bit later on. He goes down the right-hand side across the Piazza di Popolo, close to Nero's tomb. And this is the sharp turn that we mentioned earlier that he's just taking, probably the sharpest turn on the course. It gives him the opportunity to look right, and maybe, well, it moves away. He has been looking back. I think he'll be concerned, but he's got 6 kilometres to hold it together for a famous double. Rome Ostia champion, inaugural Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon champion in the same year as he goes down the Via del Balbino. Quite narrow here, isn't it? There'll be spectators in. Oh, with new leader Sang has taken up the running. She's been looking pretty good for a while. Just see if the pacemaker is still in there, or whether him stepping away has influenced this race, because they've suddenly gone to single file, and Sang is the first change in leader in the women's event, 45 minutes in since the gun went. It has been all about cheer, and she's now at the back of that group. Looks to be back on her heels a little bit, going through a bad patch, the number 1 seed in 3rd place. Anthony Kimtai is actually in 3rd place. Ooh, he was a bit laboured around that turn. He was the original pacemaker, stayed in the races in 3rd. We've got a Kenyan 1, 2, 3, and we are now just 12 or 13 minutes away from the finish. And Wafula, he will desperately want to go sub 60. More important than that is the win. Down these narrow boulevards, a few breakfasters on the right-hand side, dining al fresco. Some of his racing has been in Japan. I don't know if he runs for one of the corporate teams as he goes across the Piazza di Spagna. He's done a couple of cross countries in Japan, competed in the inter-university championships there. The Japanese running scene is corporate based, and university based, so he may have an affiliation with a racing team out there. But he actually ran pretty slow times, 64.49 back in May for a student event in Japan. He also ran a 1500 meters this year in a race in Japan, but slow. So his big CV booster is that Rome Ostia win. This would enhance his reputation no end. It's going to be interesting to see whether solo is able to sustain this lead. So we do still have Ziani in there, pacemaking well. The others have just drifted back off that. Only Sang now going with him, although the other two, one for Kenya, one for Ethiopia, not too far behind as they sweep left around these parked cars. This is good work by Belal Ziani, the Spanish athlete. 66.30 was the target, still on for that, but his best is only listed as 66 flat. Let's see, well, it's drifted just outside 67 minutes. The contest between these three, the pacemaking and the closing stages over the last 6 kilometres, could bring them back under 67, but there's a race to be won here, and at the moment it is Nancy Sang of Kenya, who's never broken 70, who's leading. And what's the gap for Wafula in the men's race? Well, he's going away. That gap is now about 10 or 15 seconds back to his training partner Gideon Kiprotich-Rop. 50 minutes coming up. His third place, Kim Tai. He's probably could almost be 2 minutes behind, certainly over a minute and a half behind. Done well though, because he looked very ragged when he got dropped from his pacemaking position, and he's hung on in there. Kenya 1, 2, 3, 4, that original group is still all out on the course, but now much more fragmented. Wafula, the pre-race favourite, the number 1 seed in the men's race, still only 19. He's working hard, but if he does have a look back as well as looking at his watch, you'll see that he has an increasing gap over his training partner, and he's only got to hold it together now for 9 more minutes. Finishes at the Colosseum. He won't be too worried about the sights and the historic elements, other than making his own bit of history as the inaugural winner here at the Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon. Good morning, if you're just joining us. This is Jeff Whiteman with coverage of this inaugural event. We're concentrating on one man. He's the race leader, Emmanuel Wafula, the 19-year-old from Kenya. There are 17,000 runners behind him, including the next 3 being 2 training partners and a fellow Kenyan. That's a sharp turn. That's probably one of the last sharp turns that he takes left down these narrow city streets. Slightly cobbled. Looks like there's been some overnight rain. Possibility of rain later on. And that's the gap, and that looks like it could be nearly 30 seconds now. Gideon Kiprotich-Rop, his 4th half marathon of the year. Chasing hard, but it looks as though, unless something extraordinary happens up front, he's running for 2nd place. This is interesting in the women's race. Sang has now drawn alongside Zian. I wonder if he's Ziani of Spain, the male pacemaker with the cap. I wonder if he's finding this blowing a bit, looking at his watch. Yeah, he's looking back. I think he doing well, but Sang has been running behind him and now has decided to just draw alongside. And it could be that she has to make a concerted effort to do her own thing over these closing stages. We're looking at 15 minutes of running left in the women's race. She's running quicker than she's ever done before, never broken 70. It will be an inaugural course record, but there's 2 behind still working together, and they're only 6 or 7 seconds behind. So the race isn't won yet, but Ziani for the first time since the gun went, has dropped back from his pacemaking responsibility and he's grimacing a bit, hurting. Nancy Sang has been well travelled this year. She's had races in Thailand in May, in Paris in June. She's 30 years of age, very experienced runner. And the graphic on the right showing the relative position of the men versus the women. And in the men's case, you can see almost in the bottom right hand side of the graphic, there's the 21 kilometre marker just coming into view. And just beyond that, we may even get to see it emerge will be the finish line at the Coliseum. So the finish is in sight. Ziani, I think, will keep going, but I don't think he's going to be any further use in the women's event to our leader, Nancy Sang of Kenya. Meanwhile, Emmanuel Wafula closing in on the lead car, which just accelerates away to make sure it's a good distance from him. This is one of the other piazzas, Navona. Beautiful architecture, but he will be oblivious to that at the moment. Hasn't been looking back, but then there are some short sections of the course, so he won't actually necessarily be able to see unless there's either a long straight or a double back where his training partner is. But I think it's about 20 seconds his lead at the moment. So just over a kilometre to run, and it's more than 20 seconds. That's now nearer 45 seconds behind for Rop. So some big gaps. They'll have to concentrate and work hard, keep the rhythm going. I think only one man has a chance of breaking 60. Rop has run 60.28. He's close to that, his lifetime best. I did mention that he's had 3 times this year 60 minutes something, and this could be a 4th. Sang looks effortless, doesn't she? Look at the face, completely inscrutable. 11, maybe 12 minutes to run. The figure you can see at the back there, the pacer, the long-term pacer, Ziani of Spain. He'll be actually quite high up in the men's race if he can keep this going. I don't think there'll be more than 10 or 12 men ahead of him, and most of them will be international elite. But Sang has her biggest lead now of the race, and it looks as though it is Fantu Werku Tai in second in the blue singlet, just ahead of Evelyn Chirchir of Kenya. Just chance for a quick glimpse back there for Sang. Wow, she looks smooth, doesn't she? Just effortless, just gliding along. 56 minutes into a half marathon, and she looks in good form at the moment. It's hers to lose right now. So we're into the business end of this inaugural Wizz Air Rome half marathon. There's the lead clock that Emmanuel Wafula has been able to see for the entire race. Welcome that it's gone to 56 minutes, meaning that he is inside the final kilometre of the race now. He's going to win it. He's going to be the champion. He's going to make history. He's going to win 2 half marathons in Rome in the same year. The winner of Rome Ostia in the spring and the inaugural Wizz Air Rome half marathon winner. But can he put the icing on the cake by going under 60 minutes for the first time for him? And in fact, the first time under 61. He won in 61.10 in Rome Ostia. I wonder if it might just be drifting away because he's had to work really hard in these closing stages, all on his own. Beautiful sights up ahead. Il Vittoriano as he takes the left-hand turn alongside that. Just over 2 minutes to run for Wafula of Kenya, the 19-year-old. Is he going under 60? I wonder if he's aware of how close he is to that mark. He's had some updates from coaches, managers out on the course, but he'll have had to do the maths himself. Don't think he'll be too concerned. The organisers would love it to be sub 60. He would love it, but the win is the key thing. There's the Colosseum up ahead, one of the great sights of the world. 58 minutes coming up. We're riding with Wafula in these closing stages. The crowd's building towards the finish of this inaugural Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon. Are we going to see a sub 60 winning performance for Emmanuel Wafula of Kenya? That's second place. Training partner Gideon Kiprotich-Rop, and this is the women's leader, clear women's leader now, Nancy Sang of Kenya. It's looking like it could be a Kenyan double. 1.5 minutes to break 60 for Emmanuel Wafula of Kenya. Just a couple of turns left. That balloon isn't the finish. That's 21 kilometres. But this is the head-on picture from the finish line. Can he do it? He's got a minute to get across the line. Fantastic. The PA system in overdrive. The crowd's now getting deep alongside the Colosseum. It's been a historic race, historic course, and a historic run for home from the Rome Ostia champion. 45 seconds to go sub 60. He's giving it everything, Emmanuel Wafula of Kenya. Finish line is going to be a welcome sight for him. And there it is, but he's only got 30 seconds to break 60. He'll see the clock on the overhead gantry, looks at his own watch, yeah. Sprinting now. He wants that sub 60. It's going to be very, very close indeed. Emmanuel Wafula is going to go down in history as the winner of the inaugural Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon. And is he going to go sub 60, 54, 55, 56, 57? He's done it just 59, 58. Oh, he goes to the ground. Emmanuel Wafula has done it. Rome Ostia champion, Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon champion, and sub 60. Brilliant. What a day. And there will be a warm embrace at the finish because these two are training partners. Kenya have filled the first 4 positions if things stay as they are. But this is Gideon Kiprotich-Rop. Going to be just outside his lifetime best. 60.28 is his best. Wafula not only broke 61 for the first time, but 60, you can see bottom right, 59.59. Makes a world of difference, that 1 second. And Rop celebrates second place. And there's the embrace from the training partners. So we're on 61.20. This is third place. A little bit of a distance to go for Anthony Kimtai. Remember, he was in the race as a pacemaker. He did a great job through 5k. Didn't quite make it to 10k. I think he's also a member of that same training group with Wafula and Rop. And I think he's going to run a personal best here. I have him down as 63.30 as a personal best. So it was the right decision to stay in the race. Kept things going at a pretty decent speed. We're just coming up to 62 minutes now. So he's got a minute to get across the line for a lifetime best. And third place on the podium. So 3 Kenyans, 3 training partners. Kimtai takes third place and a personal best for him. Just around about 62.25 or thereabouts. So takes almost a minute off his lifetime best. just over a minute. And completing a Kenyan 1, 2, 3, 4. This is Evans Kipkorir. Just was uncomfortable at a relatively early stage. He's really stuck to it well though, because he's run 10 miles, 15 kilometres solo here. Hasn't been able to see anybody else running slower than his lifetime best. He's run 60 minutes. But it's a Kenyan 1, 2, 3, 4. Evans Kipkorir is going to complete that. It was his birthday last Wednesday. Happy birthday, Evans Kipkorir. So after this, our attention will turn to the elite women, but also the Italian male finishers. They were headed by Daniel Donofrio. It's going to be under 64 minutes for Evans Kipkorir. Look at that, what a sight, the Colosseum, the vista as you turn into the finishing straight, fantastic. Beautiful race, beautiful venue. It's the first ever Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon. Fourth place goes to Evans Kipkorir. So we're around about 2.5, 3 minutes away from our first women's finisher. We're looking a bit further down the field. On the left there I can see Daniel Donofrio of Italy. It's going to be the first finisher. And just ahead of him for Spain, Ilias FIFA. No relation to FIFA, the world governing body of football. Former European 5,000 metre champion. That's why he's got a bit of pace about him in these closing stages. Former track star. Double national champion for Spain at 5 kilometres and 10 kilometres. He actually ran the Rome European Championships this year at 10,000 metres on the track. Donofrio, the first Italian, grimacing a bit. Got a best of 62.32, so he's going to be about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes outside that. This is the women's leader. She has been for some while. Nancy Sang of Kenya, away and clear. FIFA now 35 years of age. He's had a good year on the roads. He's won his only 2 previous outings on the roads in European races. Haven't seen a half marathon for him this year. 65.22 his time. First European finisher. And just coming across the line, Daniel Donofrio, the first Italian finisher in the National Police colours. Luca Parisi from the Lazio region, which is where Rome is based. 64.48, his lifetime best. He's not going to be too far outside that, but we're now concentrating on Nancy Sang, the women's leader. She's going to be the women's champion. She should probably buy a beer or a wine for Bel Alziani, because he did a wonderful pacemaking job, bringing her most of the way to the finish and helping take her clear of the 2 chasers from Kenya and Ethiopia. Final turn for Nancy Sang. And she's going under 67. The target time was 66.30. She's going to be very close to that, but this is probably going to be the biggest win of her career. 70.30 her lifetime best prior to this, so she's taken a huge chunk off that lifetime best. The males alongside her sprinting for the finish there inside the top 10 or 12, so she's high up in the race overall. And as she approaches the Colosseum, Nancy Sang is the winner of the Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon Women's Division, 66.52, a lifetime best. And in second place, Fantu Werku Tai, the former track star. She's also going to take a significant chunk off her personal best. I have her down as a debutante, but I've also seen a time of 70.45. She smashed that. Tai takes second in the women's division at the Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon. And just behind her, the number 1 seed, Evelyn Cheer Cheer. The favourite, the long-term leader, just went through a bad patch but managed to hold it together. And Evelyn Cheer Cheer takes 3rd place in the women's division. That's our podium complete in both the men's and the women's. Kenyan clean sweep in the men's and 1 and 3 in the women's, with Fantuwerku Tai of Ethiopia taking silver. Dibash Desta of Ethiopia in 4th, has a lifetime best of 71 minutes, 71.01, so she's taken a big chunk off that in 4th place. You see how they're all glistening. It's very humid conditions out there, 97% humidity. What a finish line view. Rome's Colosseum, they've started at Circus Massimo and they finish at the Colosseum. We've only had a dozen or so finishes, but you can already see that this event is going to be a classic. It was fast. There was a point to prove in the inaugural year. There are other half marathons that athletes of all standards can choose to do, but Rome has a lot going for it. It takes in the sights, it's pretty flat, it's pretty quick, and look at that for a finish line view as you make the final turn. Lina finishing there will be pretty high up in the overall men's. I think we've had less than 20 finishers. Andrea Sofientini, lifetime best of 64.59, so he's not going to break that. But I think he may be the 3rd Italian that we've seen as the top 3 pose for their photographs. We'll have a presentation of awards coming up for these 3. All 3 of them trained together, and today they raced together, but they didn't run across the line together. I thought at one point that might happen with Wafula and Rop. And this is that winning moment. We weren't sure if he was going sub 60 by 1 second. Wafula did it, just to put the icing on the cake of that victory and that double. The Rome Ostia champion and now the Wizz Air Rome half marathon in its first ever running. He knew, he could see the clock, it mattered. Good work. Didn't spend too long before he hit the deck afterwards, but with a big smile on his face. So the weather playing nicely at the moment. You can still see blue skies in the background there. Just a chance of rain the further into the race we go, but we're probably looking at those taking 3 hours or so amongst the masses. 17,000 got underway in 3 waves. Spectacular views over Italy's capital city, the ancient and the modern. There's confirmation of the runners that we've just seen. Those are the time differentials behind Wafula, and in fact he was given 59.58 on the official time. And a Kenyan 1-2-3-4. Donofrio, the first of the Italians to finish. So we're just outside 70 minutes now, 72 minutes on the gun time since they got underway. These are still decent club level athletes that are finishing in the men's competition. And this is the, we will have a formal podium. These are just the photo opportunities for the top 3 in the women's event. And the race of her life for Nancy Sang in the orange there. This is how she did it. Big personal best. And the biggest win of her career at the age of 30. This is the first time we actually saw her really grimacing. She was very serene all the way around the course, just working for those extra seconds for that big celebration win. I think the thing you can't see on the television screen is the humidity, the clamminess in the air. 97% humidity, that's why they were taking on board drinks. This is the leading Italian, Sofia Yaremchuk. She's the Italian record holder, co-record holder at the half marathon, and the record holder in the full marathon distance, national record holder. First Italian to finish, thanks her pacing buddies. We'll find out her official time. She ran in this city in the European Half Marathon Championships in Rome in June. Well, there we are. Yaremchuk, 73 minutes for her in 7th place. Those are the finishers that we've seen so far in the women's event. There we are, a little bit of history there to explain the Colosseum, one of the major tourist attractions in the world, and today it marks the 21.1 kilometre point, the finish line of the inaugural Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon. Welcome along if you're just tuning in, it's Jeff Whiteman with the live stream coverage. We've had some great racing, there's still 17,000 runners coming, and we have the awards presentation for the leading 3 men and women coming up. As you pan round, or as the drone shot takes in the sights, there's so much history there. The Arco di Constantino within the shot there. You see big crowds around the Colosseum, some to watch the race, some just regular Sunday tourists. The time now is after 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning, or Imperiale, as we pan round to the right. If you are thinking of an autumn half marathon for next year, what a place to visit. Make a weekend of it, bring some friends, family. We know it's a fast course, historic course as well, and something for everybody to see and do, whether they're running or just supporting. Wonderful venue right in the heart of the autumn road racing calendar. Brand new, and it's coming high up, this Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon. Brilliant marketing to get 17,000 runners right from the start. Meanwhile, back at the race, some of the age group athletes coming in now as well. We're on 77, 78 minutes. 1 or 2 of these runners will get the benefit of the chip timing. If it took them a minute or 2 to cross the start line, they'll get that back on the net timing. But it'll get busier and busier, with the rush hour being around about an hour 45, where we'll probably have runners finishing 3 or 4 every second. So just coming up to 77 minutes. Good work. Well, he gave it everything there, didn't he? I hope he got the time he came for. A bit of a grimace across the line. It's got to be inspiring to make a right-hand turn and up ahead of you, the Colosseum and the finish arch. You can see everybody managing to raise a gallop. even if they've feeling a bit fatigued. That last 150 metres, worth raising a sprint for. That's Maria Goretz Subano of Italy. Lifetime best of 75 minutes, so as she crosses the line, she's on just under 78 minutes. A few people there on the walkways overhead getting a nice aerial view of the finishing straight. Still a lot of club vests finishing. These are serious runners, especially in the women's race that we're looking at. It'll be a while before we get the charity runners and the tourist runners and the mid-packers, but quite a bit of celebration. Hopefully, it usually happens that if the leaders are quick, everybody has the opportunity of a personal best. I think that may be a Halifax best, Max Bergin's club 800 metre runner. It's quite bad weather in different parts of Europe today. Storm Ashley caused the Great South Run on Britain's south coast to be cancelled, right up against the sea there, but these have been ideal racing conditions in Rome, and you can see that from the celebrations and the cheering as runners go across the line. It is a fast course. They have had a good run. They've enjoyed this finish. Clayton Lee Moore's Harriers, I think, that singlet across the start line. We're just recapping back at the beginning at Circus Massimo. This was how it all unfolded. So let's relive the race in bite-sized chunks. 17,000 runners in, 3 waves down at the start. So it's an out and back course. The first left-hand sweep taking them away from Circus Massimo. Very flat part of the course here. And good work to the organisers, because everybody that I saw crossed the start line running. 3 wave starts across 20 minutes, and it was nicely done. And already within 2 minutes of the start, the 4 Kenyan runners were in formation. At least 3 of them are training partners, possibly all 4. In the women's event, Evelyn Chirchir, the #1 seed, was always right on the shoulders of the male pacemaker, Belal Ziani of Spain. Wave 2 underway in under 10 minutes. Donna Frio, the early leader in the Italian National Challenge. Around 5 kilometres, we were down to 3, Wafula, Rop and Kim Tai, the designated pacemaker, keeping them right on schedule for sub 60 minutes. Third wave getting underway just under 20 minutes after the first. And this was where Kim Tai, the pacemaker, came a bit unravelled. And this was where Chirchir first relinquished the lead, and it was notable that Sang looked the best of the leaders, very composed. The 2 training partners out in front, Wafula and Rop, stride for stride. Women through 5 kilometres, they were on schedule for very close to 66 minutes. Evans Kipkoria maintained a steady pace in 4th place in the men's event. And when the break happened, it was sudden, it was emphatic, and it was Emmanuel Wafula who in the space of a kilometre opened up a lead of almost 10 seconds. Eveline Cheer led for the first 45 minutes of the race. The men went through 15 kilometres, 6 kilometres to run just under 60-minute pace. And just under 60 minutes was going to be the story of the race, because here comes Emmanuel Wafula. You can see the clock, it's ticking away. He's never broken 61 minutes, but with a big effort, he breaks 60. 59.58 actually the official time. Time to sunbathe. And Nancy Sang, with the help of the pacemaker Ziani, drew clear in the women's race for a big lifetime best and the biggest win of her career. We're back live at the Coliseum. We're going to have the presentation of awards for the top 3 coming up very shortly. So getting ready, same backdrop, the Coliseum, unique in world sport. Let's stay with this ceremony for the top 3 men and women.
Award ceremony of the first edition of the Winter Rome Half Marathon, category men. Terzo classificato, 3rd position with a time of 1 hour, 2 minutes and 23 seconds. From Kenya, Anthony Kimtai.
Eccoci e lo facciamo arrivare appunto sul terzo gradino del podio. Consegna la coppa del terzo l'assessore Alessandro Norato, assessore appunto ai grandi eventi, sport, turismo e moda. Un applauso al terzo arrivato di questa Roma Winter Rome Half Marathon.
Secondo classificato, 2nd position with a time of 1 hour and 57 seconds. From Kenya, Gideon Kiprotich Rop.
Eccolo, guadagna il secondo gradino del podio. Consegna la coppa il nostro sindaco Roberto Gualtieri. Un applauso al secondo classificato di questo evento. First event ever.
Primo classificato e vincitore della prima edizione della Winter Rome Half Marathon. First and winner of the first edition of the Winter Rome Half Marathon with a time of 59 minutes and 58 seconds from Kenya, Emmanuel Wafula.
E premia sempre il nostro sindaco di Roma, Roberto Gualtieri. Prima di procedere, fare delle foto di rito, ovviamente dobbiamo procedere alla consegna delle medaglie anche. Consegna la medaglia del terzo podio maschile Andrea Rizzolini, Sales and Operation Manager di Enerbit.
So second classification, the second position from Kenya is Gideon Kiprotich Rob.
E premia appunto con la medaglia del secondo classificato Tecla Citterio, Director Brand Communication di Edizione.
And first position, the winner of the first edition of the Wizz Air Rome Marathon is Emanuele Vafula.
Ed è premiato con la medaglia anche lui da Cristina Polacca, marketing manager di Wizz Air, il nostro title sponsor.
And this is the podium of the first edition of the Wizz Air.
E adesso dobbiamo consegnare il trofeo più grande che consegna Paolo Bellino, amministratore delegato e direttore generale di RCS Sport and Events.
So this is the classification of the first edition of the Wizz Air Half Marathon, Rome Half Marathon. Emanuele Vafula, Gideon Kiprotich Rob, Anthony Kimtai, Kenya.
Well, he'll do very well to get that trophy in hand luggage, only on his return journey to Kenya, but what a day for him. Completes the double, Rome Ostia half in the spring, Wizz Air Rome half marathon, first one in the autumn, and under 60 minutes for the first time as well. Great day. There's confirmation of the result. Donofrio, the leading Italian, just by 24 seconds over Parisi.
So running, you can also dream. You can travel, you can fly everywhere there. 350 euro. Just for you, just for a trip all over Europe.
The women's presentation coming up very shortly.
Cerimonia di premiazione della prima edizione della Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon, categoria donne. Award ceremony of the
Well, we're back at the finish line. This is 91 minutes into the race. Many of these finishers will have the benefit of the chip timing, only starting once they cross the line and only finishing once they cross the finish line. But let's go back to the podium and the women's top three.
Sales and Operation Manager, Enerbit. E subito la coppa consegnata dal nostro assessore Alessandro Onorato, assessore ai grandi eventi, sport, turismo e moda.
seconda classificata, second position, with a time of 1 hour, 7 minutes and 30 seconds. From Ethiopia, Vorku Taye.
Consegna la medaglia finisher Tecla Citterio, Director Brand Communication di Edizione. E la coppa consegnata sempre dal nostro sindaco, non c'è, il nostro assessore Alessandro Onorato, assessore ai grandi eventi, sport, turismo e moda del Comune di Roma.
prima classificata e vincitrice della prima edizione della Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon. First position and winner of the first edition of...
Consegna il trofeo Paolo Bellino, amministratore delegato e direttore generale RCS Sport Events. E consegna il trofeo la nostra race director Laura Duchi. Al podio completo, prima di consegnare i voucher del nostro title sponsor Wizz Air.
Also, the women can fly, the women can dream. Here are the vouchers, Wizz Air vouchers, just to travel with this fantastic air flight company. The podium of the...
Consegniamo i voucher alle vincitrici di questa prima edizione.
So there's confirmation of the standings. It was a comfortable Italian close for Yaramchuk.
First edition of the Rome Wizz Air
And
Rome Half Marathon.
the top three women being presented with their Wizz Air travel vouchers as well. Wizz Air, very prolific all the way across Europe, but including Rome.
Questo il podio della prima edizione della Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon categoria.
So those are big trophies the winners have got to contend with. The cut glass and that large silver trophy there. Need a big mantelpiece to display that one. So Kenya taking 5 out of the 6 podium places across the men and women. It was only Fantu Worku on the left there who broke that monopoly. Chirchir on the right hand side, not smiling as much as you might expect, but then she was the favourite. Looks like she's happy enough really with top 3. By any measure, this inaugural event a huge success. Quick times, and these are the masses now coming through. We are approaching the rush hour of the race, coming up over the next 10 or 15 minutes. There'll be 5 or 6 finishers every second. Lots of arms aloft for the cameras as people go through the finish line there. Generally speaking, if the times are quick at the front of the field, the athletes further down will get the quick times that they wanted as well, the personal bests and the club records and the qualifying marks. That's the pacing group with the balloons there for 1 hour 35. So those that wanted that as a target time and stuck with it, they will have run exactly that on the net time, even though it says coming up to 1:37 on the clock. That will be net from when they cross the start line. And I think more than half the field from outside Italy. That was what I was hearing on the PA system at the start. Certainly a big overseas contingent. The PA announcing has been in 3-4 different languages to reflect the global nature of this first ever year. Remarkable to come in at 17,000. There's probably capacity to increase it 2 or 3-fold over the years. Kim Tai, the pacemaker, had quite a lonely run out there for the second half of the race. He did his duties to 7 kilometres, but then had to run another 14 kilometres solo to hang on to 3rd place. Rop in second, gave it his best. Got that distinctive open palm running action. If he had to lose, it was going to be to his training partner, but celebrating second place as he came through. And there's his training partner just up ahead, the winner. Undefeated in Rome, 2 races, 2 wins this year. Just looking at the speed that Wafula was generating as he crossed the line, but he had to because he knew how close he was to 60 minutes in the end. We thought it was by 1 second, it was by 2 seconds. Checking his own watch as well, but delighted with that. Chia was third in the women's event. She was the pre-race favourite, having run 66 minutes a couple of times. Led for a significant portion of the race, but in the end just drifted down to third. Bantu Workutai, better known as a track runner, got second place for Ethiopia in the women's race. And with a massive new personal best, Nancy Sang is the inaugural Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon Women's Champion. Back live out the finish line. Coming up to 100 minutes on the gun time. All of these runners will be under 100, 140, because of the way that they came across the start. So I hope you've enjoyed this coverage. This has been Jeff Whiteman with the inaugural Wizz Air Rome Half Marathon. A success by any measure. 17,000 runners. They'll be coming through for the next 2 or 3 hours. We've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it. Goodbye from Rome.